What it do, Dream Team? It's your boy D Neal back with another reaction video, guys. Here we are with how do people feel about Brexit 3 years on from BBC News Night. I'm intrigued. I just watched a video with Germany, kind of talking about it was a guy from Germany, went to Britain, talking to people. Hey, I'm selling these things right now because he was it was doing it for laughs. He wasn't serious. Selling these things right now because it's gonna get very expensive for you guys once Brexit hit. Once Brexit happen, things gonna get very expensive for y'all. So kind of know what I'm saying. Saying, hey, y'all making the wrong decision. And so I'm intrigued to see how the UK people feel 3 years, and here we got one 3 years after. Before we jump in, make sure you subscribe to the channel, ring notification bell, get a video a thumbs up so it gets suggested. What we got?
Looking out on the high seas. A small corner of England where morning rituals play out. Roker Beach in Sunderland. A city which found itself at the centre of the world.
So let's go straight to Sunderland.
The total number of votes cast in favour of leave was 82,000.
When it became the first big UK city to declare for leave. Braving the cold. So, how is that decision going down?
I thought it was a bad idea, and I can see why people were convinced by Boris and, you know, the various things that were said, like 350 million per week for NHS, which hasn't happened.
Oof.
Don't know that it's made a huge difference to my life. I thought it was a good idea at the time, and I still think it's a good idea.
Okay.
It's a complete disaster what's happening.
Oof.
I thought we'd get a hit for at least a year to 2 years, then the UK would eventually come back to us and we'd be a rich country, but
yeah,
it just hasn't happened.
Oof.
So, mixed views and a sense of a
On everything, we got some views, and I feel like that no matter what, I guess you're gonna get mixed views. One person said her life really isn't affected, so thought it was a good idea. Still think it's a good idea now. You got my guy right here saying awful. I thought we'd bounce back, but we still haven't bounced back. You know what I'm saying? We're still not the country that I thought we'd be when Brexit hit. First guy saying I thought it was a bad idea from the jump. But you know what I'm saying? People were convinced by Boris, and so far mixed reviews.
country in limbo. The UK was not keen then and is still not keen now on the consequences of being in the EU, free movement and not having full control over our laws. But as we learn about Brexit, the UK appears not to be wildly keen on the consequences of being out. Friction in trade and difficult relations with our neighbours across the channel.
A pattern is emerging. A long-running poll which asks whether it was right or wrong to leave suggests that many more think it was wrong, now by 54% to 34%. And that thinking now includes nearly a fifth of leavers, prompting talk of regret.
Dang.
A growing sense of unease, but we're not.
Some people thought it was going to be, I guess there were promises made by the government telling them that things would be amazing. We're going to do this and we're going to do this and we'll be able to do this and that. And those promises from the government, which like most promises from governments, learn not to trust them, didn't pan out. You know what I'm saying? And so now the people are like, I don't think this was the right choice anymore. Like, we should have stayed.
Reaching for the EU bunting.
So there's absolutely no doubt that people think it has gone badly. Around 60% of people say that the impact on the economy has been worse than they expected. A significant amount say the same for public services, say the same for imports and exports. But that does not quite equate to wanting to open the whole can of worms all over again. Yes, people say it's gone badly, but they're not necessarily keen on either going back into the EU or indeed having a second referendum.
Okay.
A seasoned politician on the Leave side.
Am I still a Brexiteer? Yes.
Was I naive in thinking that events wouldn't get in the way of a perfect separation? Absolutely. I'm guilty of that.
Now less certain about that decision, though sensing new hope about Brexit.
It's been very difficult, hasn't it? I think it would have been far more successful without, obviously, COVID, Ukraine, zero COVID.
COVID did hit right there. Oh yeah, COVID did F a lot of stuff up. So know what I'm saying? I can understand. Like right when you leave, COVID hit, and it's like, Jesus, we did. You know what I'm saying? Make things much harder.
COVID in China. I call them the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and I was certainly riding with one of them as a Brexit supporter. I mean, I think there is opportunity. I'm pleased that Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, and Macron seem to be building a relationship.
They have negotiated free trade with economies worth 30...
Two senior figures making their case in the referendum. Certain then...
It's simply nonsense. The EU has failed on trade.
They seem to want to take a huge risk with the employment prospects of millions of people.
And certain now about where we are.
Less well off with fewer opportunities for many people. I think it was sold on a lie. And I think the people that are now the Brexiteers in government are discovering that all their breezy optimism and their three-word slogans aren't deliverable in reality. And so I think we've got to think very carefully about what the role of the country is now we've cut ourselves adrift in this way, in trade terms, in how we deal with our economy and how we integrate in a way that will give us the best chance to have growth again in the future.
I was so certain and remain so certain that the UK's future lies outside of the EU. So it was the greatest pleasure and privilege to be able to make that case to the British public with no holds barred. You know, why should we leave? Well, here's why we should leave. And so for me, I was absolutely passionate about it and still remain the same today. So I think it is going to be the best decision we ever made. And it does always take time, particularly with the horrendous, you know, the pandemic and Putin's aggression.
Yes. I feel like, of course, nobody wants to go back and like, especially nobody who lobbied so hard for it. Nobody wants to admit that they're wrong. It's human nature to not want to admit that you're wrong. And I'm not saying that Brexit was wrong. She could be completely right. You know what I'm saying? There may have not been the opportunity that they wanted while they were in the EU. So Brexit could end up being a great thing. But it seems like for the 3 years following Brexit, things just... And I know the pandemic had a big part to play because the pandemic messed up a lot of things. But things just haven't panned out the way that the UK people were told things would pan out. And so it's like, you start wondering, but it's like, I guess you just got to give it more time and then see what they do. Maybe let's come back to the topic in another 2 to 3 years. And then it's like, have we made progress? Are things getting better? Are things getting worse? Should we go back to the EU?
And the cost of living crisis and energy prices.
For the SNP, Brexit has provided grounds for another vote on Scottish independence.
From a UK perspective, the EU referendum's a standalone event. From a Scottish perspective, it's intricately linked with the independence referendum that was just 18 months later. So there's been a material change in circumstance, that is obvious. The UK that a lot of people in Scotland voted to stick with doesn't exist anymore. The UK economy in 2016 was 90% the size of the German economy. It's now 70% the size of the German economy. Now, that's not because Germany's been running away, buying lots of buns, having a great time. It's because the UK has slid back and is demonstrably the sick man of Europe. And we can escape that with independence for Scotland in Europe.
Oh, wow.
In the original home of Brexit and across the UK, reflections about that momentous decision. Little prospect of a U-turn in this generation, but uncertainty about the journey ahead.
Yeah, it's very interesting on what will continue to happen, what happens next. I feel like you're in the situation now, you got to figure it out. And I feel like when most people are put in a situation where you have to figure it out, they figure it out. That's all we got. You guys got a favorite video suggestion? You can subscribe to Patreon or drop it in the comment section. It's your boy D Neal out.